Welcome to Cyber Sidekicks, the weekly cybersecurity podcast hosted by Richmond Advisory Group's principal analysts, namely me, Rory Duncan.
And me, Christina Richmond. This podcast is your go-to partner for understanding the cybersecurity market, industry trends, and the real-world challenges of protecting organizations today. Hey, Rory, how are you?
Hey, Christina. I'm good, thanks. You sound awesome. We were just discussing beforehand, folks, your new AV setup for microphones and all sorts of things. It sounds great.
Well, thank you. Yeah, it's only our 75th episode, and it only took me a year and a half to go to the AV specialist husband, Dennis, who has a trunk from the 1970s. I kid you not, Rory. And so, yes, we have all of the gear, which I didn't know existed.
Well,
so there you have it.
Some of those mics sound fantastic. We'll need to get Mr. Richmond on at some point to tell us about his very interesting musical journey, because I'm sure there's some stories to tell there. Maybe for a special episode.
Yeah,
Great.
I think that would be great.
Fine.
So I have a question for you, though. Have you received your invitation to the historic Order of the Thistle service in Edinburgh for the second day of Royal Week? No, you haven't?
I think it must have got lost in the post, Christina.
I think so.
Clearly.
I think so. They've forgotten you, clearly, because all of your neighbors are royal.
Well, some of them are. I don't want to go into too many details, but it's the kind of ceremony that they do each year and so on. I'm not the biggest fan of royalty, but I should probably say nothing more than that. Otherwise, I might get into trouble. Anywho, let's talk about the newsletter. We have an early newsletter this week, Christina, which is great to see.
I know, because usually I'm late.
But I thought this week's issue of the newsletter was quite interesting, Christina. Talk about the latest kind of theory research paper that you've been writing.
I've been off on my own sort of digging into this thing called services as a product. It's not really a category yet. I was talking with one of our clients and he was saying, I really like the acronym SAAP. And I said, well, it's a little close to SaaS. He goes, yeah, but that's kind of a good thing. So he and I had an interesting chat, and I ended up writing this white paper on services as a product, or SAAP, which basically means it's a product that is created within the services industry to deliver outcomes. So it's repeatable work that is part of a service, like writing a tabletop exercise or doing your security program write-up, or any of those things that are repeatable. And it could even be on the operational side. Like there are a couple of companies I'm seeing doing this. One is IBM with Argo and Atom, those two products, and Ada. So they have all these acronyms. Argo is their risk and governance operational tool. Ada is sort of the Uber umbrella thing. I don't remember what it stands for. And Atom, we've talked about a lot. It's the autonomous threat operational machine. They're a services organization delivering these products that do these repeatable, kind of the boring bits of security. Same thing with Blackwire, which is a startup, and they have a lot of these service as a product capabilities around consulting and managed services. So anyway, I thought it was an interesting concept and I decided to write it up. It's a 5-minute read. It's a downloadable report from our newsletter. It is not a blog, folks. So if you don't get our newsletter, I'm sorry, you might miss out.
Fine. Yeah, so you can sign up for free, folks. We'll keep you in the loop about what's happening, and you can sign up on our website, or richmondadvisorygroup.com. So feel free to do that, folks. It'd be great to have you a subscriber. I wanted to give some listener feedback, Christina, that we received. Yes.
You mean not the usual,
what the heck are you talking about?
Yeah, well, you guys have funny accents, or why do you talk about your cats?
Yes, that kind of thing.
No, this was real feedback.
Yeah, from Simon Hodgkinson, who's a strategic advisor with Semprus, and he's been on the show before. So we've always enjoyed chatting with Simon, and he had been sort of dissecting our special episode on identity, which he says he enjoyed, so it wasn't a complaint. But
good.
He said in the spirit of feedback, one area I think worth expanding on is the resilience of the identity platform, which, as he points out, is not covered by ITDR. As Simon points out his view that resilience is key, the ability to withstand or recover quickly from an adverse event impacting identity to minimize business disruption. he raises it because he thinks it's often missed when discussing the importance of identity. And that's fine. We don't disagree with you there, Simon. A good point to remind us of when we continue to talk about this. But yeah, we'll have Simon on again in a few weeks' time, which we're really looking forward to, because he's the kind of a guy who is measured, who is enthusiastic, he knows his stuff, and is great to have in a conversation. So yeah, great. That was it, Christina, from the feedback that we had.
I love it. And, Simon and I went back and forth a little bit and had a smidge of a debate, because he was saying that identity and the platform for identity is part and parcel with resilience. I don't think it's the only thing that is part of resilience. And when I pointed that out, he actually agreed. So we'll have an interesting discussion about this, because I think identity is central right now and has been increasingly so over the last 10 years. And while it is the cat's meow, it is not everything in terms of resilience.
I like that, the cat's meow. We had to get cats in there, folks. And Christina beat me to it.
Yes, I did. Sorry about that.
We'll also be covering a little bit of news this week, perhaps not as much as normal, but we'll be looking at some of the more recent earnings announcements.
We will. We're going to look at, Palo Alto's stock surge. That is the end of June stock surge after the beginning of June was a bit of a fall. And so we'll talk about why that happened. And then,
however,
and
we have
a guest.
Yes, this week's guest. Who is our guest this week, Christina?
Oh, we have the esteemed Jayesh Kamat, Global Competency Leader in Application Security at IBM.
Awesome.
And he's going to come talk to us about why these companies like IBM are part of the Glasswing project and others with the, what are they called? They're not foundational models. I always get it wrong. Whatever they are, those Mythos models, the the equivalent at OpenAI, and how we have to look at them with a different lens in terms of vulnerabilities, and we have to then, from a defensive perspective, create the tools to be able to vulnerabilities and also use autonomous actions to combat them. So it'll be a fascinating discussion, I think.
Yeah, great. Let's talk about some of the announcements, particularly on the financial side, about Palo Alto Networks, that you pointed this out to me.
Yeah, it's really interesting. We've been tracking Palo for, a long time. For me, probably 20 years now. So Palo stock jumped more than 3% after Wells Fargo and BTIG upped their price target. And I thought, well, that's interesting. I remember some news a few weeks ago, the beginning of June, when it went down.
Yeah.
And I seem to remember the number 16% down. No, it dropped 5.6%. And that was June 2nd-ish. So they had a strong report in the beginning of June, and they dropped. And then now they're jumping up. And so I'm like, what is going on? So I dug in a little bit, read a bunch of news. And the net is that they had been reporting their inorganic growth, their acquisitions, in a very detailed way. So if you look at their last report, which was June 2nd, they actually give the third quarter numbers. They give all of the very specific numbers. Their growth of 31% year over year to $3 billion included the $388 million from CyberArk and Chronosphere. So those are two acquisitions. And they go on with more detail. And so they've been giving this very detailed look at their finances. Well, what did they do this week? They decided to not break out the inorganic growth anymore. They're going to start talking more broadly about growth and not defining it by this was Chronosphere, this was CyberArk, this was so-and-so, which is fine. Wall Street really likes that. That's why they surged. But it's also a game. I'll just call it what I think it is. And, the big successful companies play this game quite well. What do you think, Rory?
Yeah, I think there's more of this going on. We talked about the number of companies that report on ARR, average recurring revenue, as opposed to, total revenue. And I think also if a company is being less transparent, then perhaps it could be it tends to be the case that it's not for a good reason. It tends to perhaps try and mask issues in other areas. Now, you're right. The market doesn't care. As long as you've got strong growth, double-digit growth figures year over year, quarter over quarter, then awesome, right? But it's important, at least for us, for our perspective, but also to see what parts are growing versus what parts are not necessarily growing. And I think when you look at the total revenue, I did some quick calculations that even though the total revenue for third quarter 2026 grew 31% year over year, if you take out the revenue from the acquisitions, it grew 16%, right? Not 31. Now,
and I loved your math. I was like, that is the kind of analysis that is so important, right?
Yeah. And it means, 16% growth is great. I mean, some companies would be very happy with that. But if you think about the environment that Palo Alto Networks is in, its market position, the products it has, it's slightly concerning when we look at what their growth would be had they not, included the companies that were there. So
your next example I thought was fascinating.
Yeah.
The next gen security ARR for the same quarter grew 60% year over year to 8.1 billion, which is great. Oh my gosh, 60%, that's huge. But what did you discover?
Well, if you take out, if you do the reverse calculations, take away the 1.6 billion from the acquired companies, then the growth would only be 28%. Now, again, 28% is great, but it's certainly not 60%. And given, next gen security ARR is the big earner at the moment and has a huge potential given the advent of AI agents and the use of it and so on. It would be slightly cause for concern, I think, if I was an investor looking at this. Now, folks, we don't give investment advice. We're not affiliated with any of these companies that we talk about on this show. However, that kind of takes the shine off it a little bit.
It does. 28%, though, is still a really solid growth. What I think is going to happen in the future, though, is Palo Alto is going to report their numbers with just the 60% and say, look, we grew this, the platform by 60%. And we won't be able to dig in and do the analysis that you've so kindly done to show our listeners how this stacks, right? Yeah. They did a similar thing back in, I think it was 2024. They had a stock dip. And Nikesh Arora was on the different investing shows talking about platformization. And that was sort of the big, he put a huge bet on platformization, and it's worked out and they've made acquisitions around it. But it was a move to show the market that we're doing something new. He's very skilled, very adept at this. So no, I'm not throwing shade. I actually think, good for them. It'll be interesting to watch, and it's always fascinating to pull these numbers apart.
Yeah. Great. Thanks, Christina, for that. Our special guest this week is Jayesh Kamat, who is the Global Competency Leader for Application Security at IBM. Hey, Jayesh, thanks for coming on the show.
Thank you, Rory, and thank you, Christina, for having me.
Yeah,
it's
a
pleasure.
We're so glad to have you on, Jayesh. And Jayesh and I have talked many times, and so it's always a joy. We have a good time. And he knows what's in store for him today. We're going to start out with our softball question, but we kind of know where we're going, folks. Usually we don't. We get a lot of surprises when we ask this question. And so for those of you who have been following our podcast and thinking, oh, they script all this out, they plan it all, we really don't. And we haven't scripted this with Jayesh either, but we did chat a little bit about where we think this might lead us. So Jayesh, what is keeping you up at night these days?
So Christina, I think the answer is frontier models, okay? Simply because it's literally the thing that we're doing over the past several weeks and almost a couple of months now. And I think the number of questions we've been fielding from our clients, from our partners, from even within our own colleagues, etc. It's just been around frontier models, their impact, and what are we doing, and how do we help, and so on and so forth. So that is literally the question that's keeping me awake.
And I'm not surprised, right? We did chat about this just briefly. I mean, Rory and I talk about frontier models all the time, and we've talked about Project Glasswing, and we've talked about Daybreak Cyber Program with OpenAI, and IBM is a part of both of those. So we got this announcement from your team, and it was of interest to us because number one, frontier models are a huge discussion point right now, but they're also quite practically going to bring us a flood of vulnerabilities. They're already showing the amount of vulnerabilities that they can increase our load with, right? So
That's
your
correct.
response, so your response is let's build some things that help customers with that. So let's talk about why it's important to be a part of the frontier model programs first of all, and then let's talk about what kind of things can we build to help the machine to machine response, if you will.
Right. Christina, the frontier models have impacted cybersecurity like nothing else before, in the sense that like I've been in this field for well over 25 years now, but
Wow.
the capability of these models to, independent of humans, actually go and run an exploit is just crazy. With that kind of a power, it's very important that you stay close to it so that you can, you as a client or even IBM as a provider stays close to it so that we can basically ensure not only ours but also our client security. And similarly, the clients also can stay close to that access and to that power so that they can build their own security solutions. They can ensure that they have the right controls in place and they know what's coming. Okay, because as these models become more and more available, or their variants become available with others, the chances that malicious third parties would get access to it and they would start mining all these open source and other available software repositories for vulnerabilities and start breaking into stuff is going to just increase rapidly. So staying close is absolutely the right answer. Yeah.
So what does staying close mean, Jayesh? Like what is a practical way to stay close for just the average, CISO, the average buyer? How does he or she stay close?
So I think there are a couple of ways, right? One of them is both Glasswing and OpenAI stack have mechanisms by which you could join the group. Okay, there are various stack levels, and there are Glasswing has its various levels as well of how much access you get, but you at least should be part of that membership. That's one way you could get in there. The other is partner with companies like IBM who have access
Mm-hmm.
and who are building solutions around securing clients using their access to these particular models. So both ways are absolutely available for every organization, and we should and they should try and keep up to date with them. Yeah.
Well, that's great. And so when we're in an application security world in the CI/CD, we've
Mhm.
always had a challenge of incorporating security into, well, first of all, DevOps was a challenge, getting development and operations together. That was, I mean, I've been around long enough, and I think you have too, right? That we've seen
Right.
this gradual coming together of DevOps, and then we decided to insert security, DevSecOps. And now things are going so fast in the coding world because a lot of times the machine is now coding, right?
Right.
And if we're then coding with machines, potentially introducing vulnerabilities at the speed of machine, and or vulnerabilities are being discovered at the speed of machine, what does the defender have to do within like software development? It's not defense. It's creating in a way that is defensive in my mind. Does that make
Right.
sense?
No, it absolutely does, and that's something that we have been talking about as well to our clients. And and it's funny that you say this that we've been talking security and in application security for so long, and it's generally been ignored or had a step motherly treatment, or so to speak. But
Stepmotherly treatment. I love that. Or the
yeah,
redheaded stepchild.
right, right.
Yeah.
But like my colleague was saying to me the other day, suddenly application security is like the most popular kid in the school now. So I'm like, yeah,
You've
that's
arrived.
exactly right. Like we've had or rather, it's the moment under the sun, so to speak. Yeah.
Right.
So So I think the thing is absolutely true, right? The frontier AI models were never created with the intention of breaking into stuff, but that was the unintentional consequence. I mean, that's
Right.
what Anthropic said, right? When it announced Mythos, that they were looking to build models that could code more complex applications and run longer. So that was their original intention. And that they did succeed with that, because as you are seeing frontier models and even the models before them get more and more powerful, the amount of code that they're generating is just skyrocketing, right? And
Yeah.
it's so easy to code. I mean, if you, I don't know if you're aware, but IBM has its own coding agent called IBM Bob, and
Yeah, I love that. IBM Bob. That's
right.
a
And
good
because
name.
all of us have access to it, the amount of stuff people are developing with is just crazy. And that shows what can happen within an organization, right? The amount of code that can be generated and how easy it is to code. But that also creates new sorts of risks, right? Because unless you had security in your design, unless you made sure that your enterprise level security, it was taken care of. Those are the kind of things that could have bigger issues. So you might have beautiful looking code, but it might miss all the security aspects of it. To kind of counter that, I think we are also trying to build a security approach, which is we calling it AI native security, right? So
Mm,
the idea is, how do you make sure that your requirements that have gone in to generate that code is secure right from the start? And that's where we're saying, okay, make sure that your spec or specifications have security already defined into it, right? You are defining things like which libraries you can use, what type of functions you can use, and so on. So you're basically giving it a whitelist. So
yeah.
you're making sure it's enterprise grade from design. You're also asking for additional tools to be run as application security to check code and then again revise the code. So you're asking the AI agents to look at their own code, verify it, and come back. So it's like, if you remember the prompt engineering days where you would say, okay,
Yes.
give me your thought process. That's
Yeah.
exactly what we are asking the AI coding agents to do. So all of these things put together is the new approach by which you could do security in the AI coding space. And obviously the traditional tools are also improving. They're getting AI native, like SaaS, TaaS tools, etc.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
And then with frontier AI models, we recently built what we call the security harness. Again, it's a nice new buzzword that came along, which simply means that you're controlling how you deploy the frontier AI models within your system to do security functions. It can now review code, identify vulnerabilities, provide the exploit path, and then once we know the exploit path, we could do one of two things: have some other coding agent auto-remediate, or have another agent go try and figure out what controls you need on a firewall to protect yourself while
Mm.
the coding agent is developing code. So all this new stuff is what we call as the AI native approach of security.
So, how much is the human in the loop then with all of this? Because I heard something about, we're asking for the thought process, the prompt engineering. I loved how you said, do you remember those days, the prompt engineer? I was like, yeah,
Right.
back in the day. Was that like last year,
Yes.
or 2 years, maybe 3 years? But is the agent then not just showing its thought process to a human, but then also, as you said, another agent is evaluating, another agent is responding? Is that how this
Mhm.
works?
Yes, and it's absolutely vital we do that, because the speed is too, it's speed and the volume is too great for human in the loop to be reviewing everything. But we
Yeah.
absolutely need those humans, in the sense that we do need break glass mechanisms. We do need some level of risk qualification in there, which says that, hey, if it's something simple, go do it automatically. But if it's not, if it's going to impact something, then let's go review it with a human and things of that nature, right? So the approach does need to take care of human in the loop. There's also the aspect which is the most important is context, right? The enterprise context needs to be taken care of. And that's where I think the next big thing is, which is making sure the enterprise context is built into all these security tools. And then based on the enterprise context, the human in the loop comes into play, and you have those mechanisms where somebody approves or reviews, etc. So I think that whole thing needs to be orchestrated. Right now it's moving so fast that you're just trying to plumb everything together, but at some point in time going to be like, let's step back, where's the context, let's add that in, and then it kind of becomes the ontology for everything else, right? So that's where things are moving. Right?
I think it's really interesting. I go back to another really legacy term from my storage days, which is GIGO. So garbage in, garbage out, right?
Right.
And when
Right.
you were when you were talking about setting up your context, setting up the framework, how you work at an enterprise level with these new frontier models and with new tools in application security, it occurred to me that we don't always do a good job of setting things up at the beginning. So let's chat about that just for a minute here. It's like, what do folks really need to think about? Because if you're using old frameworks, old processes, and you're in this new machine era, it seems that it's not going to be as effective. So how do you break out of our old mindset and develop in the CI/CD in a different way today? Any thoughts on that?
Yeah, sure. And Christina, it's very similar to how things were in the cloud days, right? So
Yeah.
when cloud came along, everybody said, "Hey, we can't just take our on-prem security and dump it into cloud and make it work, right?
They
It
tried.
needs new." Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly, and that's what we need to step away from this time, right? So we
Yeah.
learned that lesson then. So let's not try and get the same models in this case, right, or the same approach in here.
But Jayesh,
So
but that's what we
yeah,
do. We repeat those failures and learn them again. I love that you're so optimistic, though. So I'll let you continue because I want to hear what you think we should be doing.
hey, I'm a consultant, so I need to think that way.
Right. Full
Right,
disclosure, it requires services to
right. It
help the
requires
enterprise.
services.
Well, and honestly, I'm in favor of that because I think that services are really required to break our old processes and to put us in the mindset of developing in a new streamlined way. I agree
Right.
with you. So full disclosure, you are in consulting. I love it.
And it's very similar, right? So we basically have to make sure that we are adding security into the the new process at every gate, but in a native manner. And that's what I was trying to refer to when I said AI native, which is, if let's say you're using Cloud Code or Codex or one of those tools, right, or even IBM Bob, they all have their security definition. The new thing in the world of everything is markdowns, right? The MD files. So they have their skills, they have their MD files. So you need to make sure that those are the gates. So those are the mechanisms that you are inserting
Yeah.
security into at each phase, right? And your new equivalent of API is MCP, and that needs its own layer of what you can do, how you can access, who can access, and things of that nature. So I think fundamentally the security remains same, and that's why we
Hmm.
try to transplant it from one place to another, but the way it's deployed changes from technology to technology. So right now in the AI doing things, we have to remap them to how AI would do it, and
Yeah.
that's what is needed. Yeah.
I love it. This was really illustrative for me, very educational, because honestly, application security, while I've covered it from the services angle, Jayesh, which is why it's comfortable to have this conversation with a consultant, really, honestly, I have not been the pure CI/CD software development kind of analyst in my background. So every time I have a conversation with someone like you, someone who's smart, articulate, and understands application security and the fact that it's moving from that back room
Mhm.
redheaded stepchild place to front and center, I'm really grateful. I'm really grateful to understand it better. So I think we could talk for a long time. We're going to let you go as we promised. We said we'd have you off by the half past mark. And we really are grateful that you came on today at short notice to chat about this. So thank you so very much.
Thank you so much, Christina, for having me, and Rory for organizing.
Yeah, thanks, Jayesh. That was great. Thank you. Talk to you soon. Well, it was a great chat with Jayesh there, Christina.
It was so fun. I was just saying to you on that little pause that he's just so articulate, funny. You can hear the smile in his voice as he's talking. I really enjoyed chatting with him.
Yeah, nice guy, soft-spoken, but really knows his stuff. He really knows his stuff. It was good to hear it from him, actually explain his perspective. That's always quite good. We always like folk who can come on and talk passionately about what they do, but also those who can kind of explain things in a way that doesn't overcomplicate the topic or jargonizes us or whatever. So yeah, great.
No, and it was great. It was a fun discussion, but unfortunately, I think we probably need to wrap the show. What do you think?
Yes, definitely. We're running slightly long, but that's okay. We had lots to talk about. So next week, folks, our guest will be Heath Renfro, who's the co-founder of the breach recovery specialist services firm, Phoenix 24. So we're looking forward to that one. Yeah.
That's going to be a fun one. We talked with them first at RSA this year. And we were on the edge of our seats. And I don't know how much they can share publicly, but wow, they have some interesting recovery clients in the past. I'm sure they won't name them all, but they will give us a taste of what it means to go through breach recovery. Not incident response, folks, but what is it like to go through actual recovery?
Yep. This is all right of boom stuff, right? Right of boom. And it's kind of a little bit
far right. Actually, it's not even just right, because right would be the response, but then it's down the road a piece. Like after the responders have come in and gotten the attacker out of your network or your endpoints or what have you, how do you clean up on aisle 3, basically?
And talking about cleaner, it reminds me of that Samuel L. Jackson movie, The Cleaner, where he would go in and basically sort things out after after something terrible had happened, and literally cleanup squad. So join us, please, for that. We look forward to you joining us. And if you'd like to get in touch with us, you can do so via email. You can send a message to Rory, me at rory@richmondadvisorygroup.com, or
you can reach me, Christina, at richmondadvisorygroup.com, or you can just send it to info@richmondadvisorygroup.com, and we'll get it that way. So one of 3 ways to reach out.
Great. Well, thanks again for listening, folks. We hope you can join us again next week. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.